Deep in the heart of a remote village, nestled between towering mountains and a dense forest, a shadowy creature lurked in the darkness. The people who lived there whispered of a terrifying creature known as the Chupacabra, a monster that struck fear into the hearts of anyone who crossed its path. The story had it that the Chupacabra had razor-sharp fangs that would rip the flesh off of its prey, glowing red eyes that would petrify people who dare look it in the eyes, and a huge craving for blood. Its presence was often preceded by the eerie silence of the night, as if all the creatures in the forest sensed its arrival and hid in fear. Livestock began to vanish mysteriously, leaving behind only lifeless carcasses, drained of blood. One villager named Miguel had an encounter with the Chupacabra. Miguel was on his farm, as usual, but this night was different. He felt like something was off, as if there was a presence that didn't want him to be there. This night was too quiet. No crickets, no whistle in the wind, nothing. Dead silence. When Miguel decided to head in for the night, he felt a breeze of wind hit him. He noticed something different about it. With the wind passing by, he heard it carry an eerie howl that sent a chill down his spine, and the wind also carried a strong stench of decay that filled his nostrils. Wondering what was making that smell, Miguel then turned to look at the forest, and there, in the darkness, he saw a pair of red glowing eyes staring back at him. Those red eyes were unlike anything he had seen before. Its red eyes glowed with an unholy light, and its growling didn't even sound like any animal he's heard of. And its fangs looked like it could cut through anything it dared to sink its teeth in. Even from where Miguel was standing, he could see fresh blood dripping from its fangs. Without hesitation, Miguel quickly ran inside and slammed the door. Going for his rifle, he heard the creature run at the door, trying to get in. When it couldn't get through the door, it then went for the windows. Since Miguel forgot to close his windows, it had no problem getting in. With his body halfway in, Miguel finally had a clean shot. With his finger on the trigger, he opened fire. After he shot the creature, it then cried out in pain. He then saw it ran out of the window and ran back into the forest. Not wanting to know if it survived or not, Miguel stayed in his house. Not wanting to go to sleep either, he stayed in the kitchen, waiting to see if the creature would return. A few hours had passed by, and Miguel was still awake. As his eyes were starting to doze off, he then heard the creature. Aiming his gun at the window, he waited to see if the creature would enter through the window again. It didn't. Without moving an inch, Miguel then noticed the sun come up. With his rifle in his hand, Miguel finally went to go outside. The first thing he noticed outside was a trail of bloody tracks that led into the forest. Before he went to follow the tracks, Miguel had to go check his cattle. When Miguel went to go open the door from the barn, a stench of decay had filled the air. When Miguel had fully opened the door, he saw his cattle on the floor, dead. He went to investigate what had happened to them. As he got closer, he noticed that they were all pale, and on the side of their necks, there was 2 puncture wounds. Stepping outside and seeing the sun shining everything in the forest, Miguel then began to follow the tracks into the forest. Going deeper and deeper into the forest, Miguel began to notice that the air had grew heavy with an otherworldly presence, and the trees seemed to whisper warnings, and the wind had carried an eerie howl like last night. Noticing these strange things, Miguel knew that he was close. Still following the tracks, Miguel noticed that the tracks led up a hill. Noticing there was a small hole on the side of the mountain, Miguel knew that the creature was living in there. Miguel then began to make his way up the hill to see if the creature was still alive. As he looked inside the hole, his senses had heightened. When Miguel had looked inside the hole, a gust of wind had blew out of it, and the stench of decay had filled the air. The smell was so strong that Miguel had to get away from it to throw up. Standing 3 feet from the hole, Miguel picked up a rock and threw it into the hole. As the rock flew into it, he heard a growl. Knowing this was his only chance to kill it, Miguel walked towards the hole and began to shoot. As Miguel kept shooting, he began to hear whimpering noises. Knowing that nothing could survive that, Miguel began to make his way back home. As a few days have passed and no sighting of the creature, Miguel had concluded that the creature was finally dead. With it being another night, Miguel made his way upstairs to go to bed. As he was about to go to sleep, he heard a noise outside. Jumping out of the bed and grabbing his rifle, Miguel ran downstairs and thought to himself, "How is that thing still alive?" Finally reaching the bottom, Miguel ran to the window to see if he can see it. There, at the edge of the forest, was the creature. But this time, half of its face was badly destroyed. Opening the window and aiming his gun at the creature, Miguel waited to see what would happen next. But all it did was stare at him. After a while, it then turned around and ran back into the forest. To this day, Miguel still doesn't know what attacked him. When he had told people what had happened to him, they said it could have been a rabid wolf. But others had told him that he was attacked by a Chupacabra. But what do you guys think? Was Miguel attacked by a rabid wolf? Or was he actually attacked by a Chupacabra?